In the hushed darkness of the desert beyond Palm Springs during the year 1949, a young couple hurtled towards the slumbering agricultural settlement of India. The individual at the wheel, already submerged in alcohol and discontent with his marital bond, was the renowned vocalist Frank Sinatra. His companion, equally steeped in spirits and newly extricated from an unfulfilling union, was the 27-year-old performer, Ava Gardner. They halted their vehicle on a desolate, dusty byway, alighted, and commenced a startling display of marksmanship, shattering streetlights with identical revolvers. When the local constabulary apprehended them and transported them to the precinct, the pair, with laughter and charm, managed to extricate themselves from the predicament thanks to a substantial payoff arranged by their studio. Mere hours later, Gardner entered the residence she shared with her sister Bappy and announced in her characteristic Southern cadence that she had experienced a truly splendid time with the married gentleman who would soon sever ties with his wife in favor of her. These fleeting moments of audacious courtship, firearms, potent libations, mirth, and unbridled liberty would ultimately come to define the existence of Ava Gardner. She was counted among the most stunning visages of Hollywood's celebrated golden era. A woman possessing eyes the hue of Andean emeralds and cheekbones that appeared to capture and refract light. She was known to utter profanities with the vehemence of a sailor, shared intimacy with bullfighters and heads of state, propelled Sinatra towards the precipice of ruin, and navigated life with a passion and autonomy seldom witnessed among women of her epoch. She earned the moniker of the world's most exquisite creature, and her narrative unfolded as a profound, enigmatic, and exhilarating enigma. Welcome to Hollywood Mysteries. Ava Lavinia Gardner entered the world on Christmas Eve of 1922 within the modest farming locale of Grabtown, situated near Smithfield in Johnson County, North Carolina. She was the youngest of a brood of 7 offspring, born to Jonas Bailey J.B. Gardner, a cultivator of tobacco and operator of a sawmill, and his wife, Mary Elizabeth Molly Baker, a devoted superintendent of the Baptist Sunday School. Their dwelling, the most substantial structure in the vicinity, lacked both electrical illumination and internal plumbing. The devoutness of her parents instilled a stringent sense of moral rectitude that would, in a curious turn, fuel her subsequent defiance. The Gardner family commanded local respect, even contributing timber for the construction of the Sardis Baptist Church. Yet, within 2 years of Ava's arrival, a widespread agricultural downturn compelled the family to relinquish their property and relocate a short distance to manage a boarding establishment catering to 6 educators. The economic devastation of the 1920s and early 1930s impacted the Gardners severely. Ava's father diligently maintained the grounds of the boarding house and operated a small lumber operation. Her mother provided sustenance and served as a maternal figure to the resident teachers. Young Ava was a child of dual natures, at once shy and prone to mischief. A spirited tomboy, she once scaled the water tower of the boarding house and sustained a leg injury while crawling through a shattered window to retrieve her academic texts. As the Great Depression intensified, state funding for the boarding house was withdrawn, prompting the family's relocation to Newport News, Virginia. There, Molly managed a lodging facility for shipyard personnel, while J.B. pursued any available employment. Ava, still in her adolescence, experienced the profound grief of her father's passing from bronchitis in 1938, leaving the family bereft and financially destitute. Back in North Carolina, the Gardners re-established themselves once more in the small community of Rock Ridge. Molly presided over yet another boarding house for teachers, and Ava attended Rock Ridge High School, completing her studies in 1939. Classmates frequently taunted her for her hand-me-down attire, fostering in her a keen awareness of socioeconomic disparities. For a period, she pursued secretarial studies at Atlantic Christian College in Wilson, all the while envisioning a future vastly removed from the impoverishment of her formative years. However, fate intervened when she embarked on a train journey to New York City to visit her elder sister Beatrice, affectionately known as Bappy, and Bappy's husband, the photographer Larry Tart. Tart captured a portrait of his teenage sister-in-law and prominently displayed it in the window of his Fifth Avenue studio. That single photograph would irrevocably alter the trajectory of her life. Before I continue with the extraordinary chronicle of the photograph that reshaped cinematic history, I wish to draw your attention to the exquisite collection of shirts I currently feature in our online store. For those with a passion for cinema and a desire to showcase their admiration for iconic figures of the Golden Age, such as Rudolph Valentino, Barbara Stanwyck, Marlene Dietrich, Louise Brooks, or William Powell, I have curated exclusive designs tailored precisely for you. Consider, for instance, the Nick and Nora shirt, complete with their beloved canine companion Asta, or this captivating design celebrating the remarkable Anna Mae Wong. These shirts are meticulously printed on premium, ultra-soft cotton, available in sizes extending up to 5XL. Prices commence at $25, and we extend shipping services to the majority of global destinations. Every purchase significantly contributes to the upkeep of this channel, and I extend my sincere gratitude to all those who have already acquired an item and for the overwhelmingly positive feedback regarding the shirts. Now let us return to Ava's momentous ascent towards the pinnacle of fame. One day, a cinema usher at a Lowe's theater named Bernard Dewan observed Ava's portrait adorning the studio window and remarked that someone should forward it to MGM. Tart, acting promptly, did precisely that. MGM swiftly recognized the latent potential within the photogenic teenager and extended an invitation for a screen test. In 1941, Gardner, then 18 years of age and still pursuing her studies at Atlantic Christian College, found herself en route to MGM's New York offices. She was filmed as she approached the lens, artfully adjusting floral arrangements and turning as directed while the cameras captured her every movement. The studio opted not to record her voice, as her pronounced Southern accent rendered her virtually unintelligible to them. Nevertheless, the formidable head of MGM, Louis B. Mayer, famously telegraphed his New York talent acquisition division, "She can't sing, she can't act, she can't talk. She's terrific." Gardner inked a standard 7-year contract with MGM, stipulating a weekly salary of $50, and departed from her academic pursuits for the allure of Hollywood. Her sister Bappy accompanied her, assuming the dual roles of chaperone and surrogate parent, as Molly had steadfastly refused to permit her youngest daughter to traverse the country unaccompanied. MGM's initial priority was to enroll Ava in elocution lessons to diminish her regional accent and vocal coaching to refine her resonant alto register. Gardner later confessed to experiencing such profound nervousness that she occasionally resorted to imbibing alcohol prior to scenes to steady her jitters. She spent the early 1940s navigating a series of uncredited minor roles in films such as Small Town Girl and Babes on Broadway, typically cast as a chorus girl, a campus co-ed, or a decorative background figure. While other aspiring actresses convened for lunch in the MGM commissary, she felt too intimidated to join them. The actress Arlene Dahl recounted that Gardner was so apprehensive about encountering established stars like Lana Turner and Greer Garson that she chose to dine elsewhere. Throughout those lean years, she applied herself diligently, heeding the guidance of coaches and directors, and meticulously observing the deportment of more seasoned performers on set. After 15 bit parts, she finally secured her inaugural screen credit in the 1943 release, Ghost on the Loose. Although the film was a low-budget production, the appearance of Ava's name on the marquee held significant weight. The industry had begun to take notice, yet it would require an additional 3 years before she truly captivated the screen. That seismic impact occurred when independent producer Mark Hellinger selected her to co-star with Burt Lancaster in the 1946 production, The Killers, a noir adaptation of Ernest Hemingway's tale of treachery and doomed men. Gardner's portrayal of the femme fatale Kitty Collins was utterly mesmerizing. She embodied a seductive chanteuse whose smoldering gaze and languid gestures served as justification for the murders committed in her name. Critics lauded her performance, and audiences previously unfamiliar with Ava Gardner were now utterly enthralled. Overnight, she became the quintessential embodiment of the film noir siren. Around the period when MGM was orchestrating her breakthrough role in The Killers, Gardner's personal life began to become inextricably interwoven with her professional endeavors. She first encountered fellow contract player Mickey Rooney on the MGM lot in the early 1940s, when he unexpectedly crossed a set dressed as Carmen Miranda during the filming of Babes on Broadway. Gardner was utterly astonished to witness a diminutive man navigating the set in platform heels and a fruit-adorned turban. Rooney paused mid-song to engage her in flirtation, and within months, the pair exchanged vows. She later confided to dancer and actress Ann Miller, "Don't let the little fella fool you. He knew every trick in the book." Their union, solemnized on the 10th of January 1942, in the secluded town of Ballard to safeguard Rooney's wholesome screen persona, endured for barely a year. Gardner initiated divorce proceedings in 1943, citing mental cruelty. Privately, she attributed the dissolution to his proclivity for gambling and infidelity, yet she steadfastly refused to tarnish his unblemished public image. The passing of Ava's mother, Molly, on the very day her divorce from Rooney was finalized, rendered this a particularly agonizing period. "It was the saddest day of my life," she later reflected. Still immersed in her grief, Gardner entered into a second marriage with the renowned band leader Artie Shaw in 1945. Shaw, an intellectual and avid reader, encouraged his insecure new wife to enroll at UCLA. She pursued studies in literature and economics, demonstrating a remarkable aptitude. However, Shaw's controlling disposition soon proved stifling. He prescribed reading lists, critiqued her speech, and appeared resolute in shaping her into his idealized conception of a cultured woman. Gardner found herself increasingly discomfited by the weight of these expectations, and the marriage disintegrated within a year. By 1946, she was once again single and poised on the precipice of genuine stardom following The Killers. Her image, sultry, independent, and subtly perilous, aligned seamlessly with her private disposition. A small-town girl who had discovered the vibrant nightlife of Los Angeles and was resolutely determined to embrace it. She indulged in smoking, sipped bourbon, gambled in Las Vegas, and danced until the early hours. During this period, she commenced a protracted and intricate association with the reclusive millionaire and aviator Howard Hughes. She consistently maintained that she never harbored romantic feelings for Hughes, yet acknowledged his trust in her and his intermittent presence in her life for 2 decades. She characterized him as painfully reserved and more unconventional than anyone she had ever encountered. Their connection exemplified the inherent contradictions within Ava Gardner's femme fatale persona, a woman who permitted an immensely influential man to bestow upon her aircraft and jewels, yet adamantly refused his physical advances. As Ava's film roles ascended in prominence and her romantic entanglements multiplied, a pertinent question began to emerge. Would her own artistic merit ever be assessed independently of the men she wed or the controversies she inadvertently ignited? With 2 marriages behind her at the age of 24 and a developing tumultuous friendship with Howard Hughes, Hollywood's gossip columnists pondered whether she was merely another attractive face destined for downfall, or if the rebellious farm girl possessed the fortitude to assume dominion over her own narrative. The response would manifest in the form of another celebrated countenance in what became known as the love affair of the century, an entanglement that irrevocably altered 2 careers, shattered existing marriages, and left an indelible imprint on American popular culture. Following The Killers, Ava Gardner embarked on a highly productive phase during which her breathtaking beauty and developing acting acumen enabled her to carry significant cinematic productions. In the 1946 film Whistle Stop, she appeared alongside George Raft and adeptly refined her on-screen presence within a compelling crime melodrama. The subsequent year, she starred in The Hucksters with Clark Gable, showcasing a more delicate interpretation as an idealistic young war widow. Her defining performance arrived in Showboat in 1951, where she delivered the iconic songs Can't Help Lovin' Dat Man and Bill. In fact, MGM executives harbored concerns that her vocal prowess might be insufficient, leading them to engage Annette Warren to dub her singing parts. Gardner was incensed by this decision, but when she recorded Bill for the film's soundtrack, the rich, smoky timbre of her voice surprised even her most ardent critics. In Pandora and the Flying Dutchman, she assumed the titular role of Pandora, a free-spirited individual ensnared in a mythical narrative of ill-fated lovers, filmed in the picturesque Spanish locale of Tossa de Mar. The local inhabitants adored her, and decades later, the town honored her with a bronze statue of Pandora gazing out towards the sea. Gardner continued her cinematic journey with further adaptations of Ernest Hemingway's literary works, including The Snows of Kilimanjaro and The Sun Also Rises. She became the definitive cinematic embodiment of the Hemingway woman for the movie-going public, forging both professional and personal connections with the esteemed novelist. The author admired her resilience and authenticity. She, in turn, appreciated his debonair charm and the exotic allure of his narratives and personal life. Hemingway introduced her to matadors and wrote to friends that Ava possessed a deeper understanding of the artistry of bullfighting than many Spaniards, a sentiment intended as a compliment to Ava, rather than a disparagement of the Spanish people. In Lone Star, she once again shared the screen with Clark Gable. And in Mogambo, she portrayed a bold showgirl caught between Gable and Grace Kelly. Her performance in Mogambo garnered her an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress, the sole Oscar recognition of her career. She later quipped that working with director John Ford felt akin to enduring military training, describing him as the meanest man on earth, thoroughly evil, yet admitting to adoring him. In 1954, Gardner starred in The Barefoot Contessa, portraying Maria Vargas, a Spanish dancer discovered by a Hollywood director who ascends to international stardom and marries into European aristocracy. The role bore striking resemblances to aspects of Gardner's own life. She relished the freedom of going barefoot at home and moved effortlessly between Los Angeles, Spain, and London. It was during this period that MGM's publicity department bestowed upon her the title of the world's most beautiful animal. Gardner, for her part, understood that her allure was often prioritized over her acting abilities. Nevertheless, many believe she never achieved the cinematic stature her talents warranted, a limitation attributed to her extraordinary beauty. Another inevitable consequence of her striking looks was the profound effect they exerted on men. Gardner's third marriage to singer and actor Frank Sinatra represented the most legendary and tumultuous relationship of her life. They first crossed paths in 1943 at a Hollywood gathering. At that juncture, Sinatra was married to his childhood sweetheart, Nancy, and Gardner was still wedded to Rooney. They engaged in flirtatious banter for years, but their romance truly ignited in the late 1940s, subsequent to that fateful night I described in the introduction, when they indulged in wild escapades and engaged in vandalism by shooting out streetlights in India. Sinatra, profoundly dissatisfied with his marriage and experiencing career difficulties, left Nancy for Ava. The Catholic Church, gossip columnists Hedda Hopper and Luella Parsons, and a significant portion of his fan base vehemently condemned him. The ensuing scandal nearly ended his career. Notwithstanding these repercussions, Gardner and Sinatra exchanged marriage vows in November of 1951. They endeavored to enjoy a honeymoon with a degree of privacy, but this proved an insurmountable challenge. They eluded reporters and journeyed to Miami, but amidst the confusion, Ava misplaced her suitcase, necessitating that she wear Frank's attire for the initial days. She recalled, "So I slept in Frank's pajamas, at least the top half of them, and the next day we walked along the empty beach, me in the bottom half of my travel suit and Frank's jacket." Inevitably, a photographer lay in wait and captured an image of them, barefoot and hand in hand. I've always thought it was a sad little photograph, a sad little commentary on our lives," she mused. "Then we were simply two young people so much in love, and the world wouldn't leave us alone for a second. It seemed that everyone and everything was against us, and all we asked for was a bit of peace and privacy." He would later refer to her as the love of his life. She wrote in her memoir that he was the sole man she had ever genuinely loved. However, passion and jealousy erupted almost immediately. They engaged in public and private altercations. She stated, "Both Frank and I were high-strung people, possessive and jealous, and liable to explode fast. When I lose my temper, honey, you can't find it anywhere. I've just got to let off steam, and he's the same way." Sinatra's career slump led him to excessive drinking and despair, and he contemplated suicide on more than one occasion. She leveraged her connections to secure him the role of Maggio in From Here to Eternity by persuading Columbia Pictures head Harry Cohn to cast him, primarily by charming Cohn's wife, Joan, whom Ava knew. Cohn was initially resistant to the idea, but ultimately agreed to a screen test. Sinatra impressed and secured the part. Consequently, the film earned Sinatra an Academy Award and revitalized his singing career. Concurrently, the couple's domestic existence was characterized by utter chaos and fueled by incessant jealousy. "It was another sort of jealousy that ate into our bones," she remarked. They hosted extravagant gatherings, traveled the globe, and at times communicated through silence for days. Gardner became pregnant on 2 occasions, but elected to terminate both pregnancies due to MGM's standard practice of imposing severe penalties on actresses who had children. In fits of rage, she hurled heavy objects at her romantic partners, and Sinatra was no exception. Although she most famously launched a marble ashtray at Howard Hughes, striking him squarely, an act she later believed had proven fatal until he staggered to his feet, bleeding profusely. While she never rendered Sinatra unconscious with such dramatic force, their dynamic was highly volatile. The marriage endured for 6 years. She initiated divorce proceedings in 1954, but the dissolution was not finalized until 1957. Despite their legal separation, they remained devoted companions. When Gardner suffered a debilitating stroke decades later, Sinatra financed her private medical flight to Los Angeles and covered her hospital expenses. He also dispatched one of the initial floral tributes to her funeral. In her memoir, she fondly recalled her time with Frank as simply lovers forever, eternally. Gardner's cinematic opportunities evolved as she progressed through the 1950s. She portrayed Guinevere opposite Robert Taylor's Lancelot in the opulent Technicolor epic Knights of the Round Table in 1953. She also depicted a colonial-born Anglo-Indian woman in Bhowani Junction, a film whose promotional material featured some cringeworthy displays of exoticism. In the aforementioned The Sun Also Rises, she convincingly embodied Lady Brett Ashley, a woman whose sexual independence propels the narrative. The film's Spanish setting allowed her to remain in close proximity to her lover, the bullfighter Luis Miguel Dominguin, who also became involved with Linda Christian. If you desire further insight into Linda's truly adventurous liaisons, I encourage you to explore my recent video dedicated to her. Even during her marriage to Sinatra, Gardner continued to attract a constellation of admirers, much to Sinatra's profound displeasure. There was, of course, the enduring presence of Howard Hughes, who once erupted in a jealous fury when she ventured out with the crooner Mel Torme. She later engaged in an affair with actor George C. Scott while filming The Bible, though he struggled with heavy drinking and was allegedly abusive. She also pursued romantic relationships with actors Robert Mitchum, David Niven, future U.S. President John F. Kennedy, Robert Taylor, Steve McQueen, Frank Gifford, Claude Terrell, and film director John Huston. Not all of Gardner's significant connections with men were romantic in nature. She cultivated a deep friendship with actor Gregory Peck. The two starred together in 3 films and maintained their close bond throughout their lives. Upon her passing, Peck took in her housekeeper and her dog. Ava also indulged in romantic liaisons with women, reportedly including Lana Turner, singer Chavela Vargas, and British actress Christine Norden. She also forged a friendship with the future Princess of Monaco, Grace Kelly, on the set of Mogambo. Kelly initially disapproved of Gardner's consumption of alcohol and her liberated approach to sexuality, remarking, quote, "Such a mess. It's unbelievable." Gardner's wry sense of humor and inherent generosity eventually won over the younger actress. They visited Rome together, toured a brothel at Gardner's insistence, and even shared a convivial double date that culminated in the surprising spectacle of the typically reserved Grace Kelly, embracing a local young man for passionate kissing in the back seat of a taxi. Gardner also attempted to introduce Kelly to the Greek shipping magnate Aristotle Onassis, describing him as a, quote, "forceful lover." Onassis repulsed her, and she declined his advances in no uncertain terms. Ava later commented that, quote, "not even a good whipping would have changed her mind about Onassis." Ava was a liberal Democrat during a predominantly conservative era and demonstrated a keen interest in political matters. In 1959, she journeyed to Cuba and met Fidel Castro, who at that time was regarded by many on the American left as a romantic revolutionary and by those on the right as public enemy number 1. Castro greeted her with gallantry and provided her with a tour of his headquarters in Santa Clara. They shared Cuba Libres on a balcony as he articulated his vision for a new nation. It became apparent that Ava envisioned a passionate romance developing between them. This rendezvous certainly caught the attention of Castro's companion, Marita Loren. Following a confrontation in an elevator during which Gardner struck Loren, Ava's security detail drew his weapon, prompting Castro to create distance from the actress. He subtly arranged for her to depart with a charming aide, ostensibly to cater to her desires. Gardner's sharp wit and candor became legendary. When a photographer at a press event inquired about her attraction to Sinatra, remarking that he was merely 119 pounds of man, she offered a sweet smile and responded, "Well, let me tell you, 19 pounds of him is pure cock." Her vocabulary was reminiscent of sailors and truck drivers. Nevertheless, audiences and the press remained captivated. She indulged in heavy drinking, casual liaisons, hearty meals, and often eclipsed the men around her. This display of performative masculinity in such a beautiful and successful woman unsettled some of her contemporaries, yet it also presented a model of female independence seldom seen in mid-century Hollywood, aside from figures like Carole Lombard and a select few others. By the middle of the 1950s, Gardner had grown weary of Hollywood's duplicity and the incessant tabloid scrutiny. In 1955, she relocated to Madrid, drawn by Spain's bullfighting culture and a more lenient approach to celebrity. There, she frequented bullfights, bars, and flamenco clubs, hosting extravagant gatherings. Her residence became a hub for expatriates and artists. The poet Robert Graves and the novelist James A. Meichner were counted among her acquaintances. She relished Spanish cuisine and the liberty to stroll the streets unmolested by admirers. Spain also brought her geographically closer to Dominguine, with whom she experienced a volatile on-again, off-again love affair. In one notable instance, during a disagreement, she hurled a glass at him, the fragments narrowly missing his eye. Their passion, as ever, blazed intensely but briefly. Her final significant starring role was in John Huston's The Night of the Iguana in 1964, an adaptation of a Tennessee Williams play filmed on the coast of Puerto Vallarta. She portrayed Maxine Falk, a widow managing a dilapidated hotel who harbored desires for Richard Burton's character, an alcoholic priest. This performance earned her the Silver Shell Award for Best Actress at the San Sebastian International Film Festival and garnered nominations for Golden Globe and BAFTA awards. As she aged, her acting opportunities diminished. She appeared in the political thriller 7 Days in May as the lover of Burt Lancaster and as Sarah, the biblical wife of Abraham, in Dino De Laurentiis's 1966 epic, The Bible, in the Beginning. In 1967, she briefly pursued the role of Mrs. Robinson in The Graduate, contacting director Mike Nichols and expressing her desire for the part. Nichols, who visited her at her hotel, later recalled her sitting at a French desk, phone in hand, and stating, "All right, let's discuss your film. First and foremost, I do not strip for anyone." The role ultimately went to the younger actress Anne Bancroft. Gardner also participated in international co-productions, such as 55 Days at Peking in 1963 and Meyerling, released in 1968. Frequently cast as women of status or alluring foreign wives, she continued to work sporadically throughout the 1970s and early 1980s, including a recurring part in the evening soap opera Knots Landing. In 1966, Gardner underwent an elective hysterectomy following her mother's demise from uterine cancer. Fearing a similar fate, she opted for the removal of her uterus, thereby eliminating any future possibility of pregnancy. That same year, she relocated to London to circumvent Spain's stringent tax regulations. She took up residence in a flat at 34 Ennismore Gardens in Knightsbridge, which would serve as her permanent home. She appreciated London's relative anonymity and cultivated a circle of British friends. She seemed to harmonize well with a blend of emotional restraint and a penchant for indulgence that is distinctly English. She attended the opera, read extensively, despite her frequent assertions that she was far from intellectual. In private, she had always found pleasure in literature and sought a degree of tranquility. However, even in middle age, she could not escape public attention. In the mid-1970s, she was barred from the Ritz Hotel in Madrid after urinating in the lobby during a drunken episode. Such incidents contributed to the persona of Ava Gardner as the ultimate beautiful rebel who reveled in her notoriety. Regarding her film career, Gardner did not formally retire. She acted in television productions, including the 1985 film Maggie. She also participated in 2 made-for-television movies and lent her voice to narration projects. Yet, she conceded that many of her later film selections were made primarily for the loot. Reflecting on her career, she admitted that she was never truly driven by ambition. "If I were a great intellectual," she confided to journalist Peter Evans in 1988, "I'd sit and read and study. But I'm not. I don't want to paint. I don't want to write. I want to go out and play tennis. I want to swim. I'm purely a physical piece of machinery, or I was." This was an unvarnished assessment from a woman who had built her fame on physical allure and never attempted to conceal it. By the early 1980s, Gardner was experiencing the physical repercussions of decades of heavy drinking and smoking. She had been a lifelong drinker, famously telling a bartender, "I'm not a lush, just a drunk." In 1986, she suffered a severe stroke that left her partially paralyzed. Although she possessed considerable personal wealth, she permitted Sinatra to arrange and cover the cost of her transport to a specialist in the United States as a gesture of goodwill. The stroke impaired her mobility and limited her capacity to work. She spent a significant portion of her remaining 4 years in her London flat, attended by a housekeeper and her dog. Lupus, an autoimmune disease, further weakened her. Ava Gardner's final years presented a stark contrast to the glamorous days of her youth. Friends observed that she grappled with loneliness and regret. What reflections occupied her mind as she lay awake in her Knightsbridge apartment? Did she recall the laughter on a Palm Springs night when she and Sinatra shot out streetlights? Or the warmth of a Havana balcony with Fidel Castro? Or perhaps the endless evenings in Madrid's flamenco establishments? This period of introspection seemed to weigh heavily on her, and the freedom she had exercised left a somewhat bitter aftertaste as she contended with the consequences of her wild years. Her final 4 years were, it appears, a time of solitude and a slow, arduous journey toward the inevitable. On the 25th of January 1990, Ava Gardner passed away from bronchopneumonia in her London residence at the age of 67. Her death marked the conclusion of an era of Hollywood glamour, intimately linked to the aspirations and anxieties of post-war America. In accordance with her final wishes, she was transported back to Smithfield, North Carolina, and interred in Sunset Memorial Park alongside her parents and siblings. Over 3,000 people paid their respects at the Underwood Funeral Home the night preceding the funeral. Few celebrities were present at the graveside service, but the press attended in large numbers, and the first floral tribute to arrive was from Frank Sinatra. People magazine honored her with the headline, "The Last Goddess." Paris Match dedicated 2 issues to her, including 8 pages of photographs from the Ava Gardner Museum in Smithfield. In her will, she bequeathed a substantial portion of her estate to her sisters, along with her personal effects, including jewelry gifted by Sinatra, correspondence from Hemingway, and the manuscripts for her memoir and an unfinished ghost-written autobiography. Excerpts from her recorded conversations with journalist Peter Evans were published posthumously in Ava Gardner, The Secret Conversations in 2013. The book offered her frank appraisals of lovers, fellow actors, and herself. It is a captivating read, and I will provide a link to it in the description below. Ava Gardner was a liberated woman 2 decades before the women's liberation movement gained momentum. That freedom came at a cost. Her beauty was a curse bestowed by the gods, as John Huston once stated, and she undoubtedly paid its price. Her high spirits devolved into alcohol dependency. She faced hotel bans and ultimately spent her days in relative obscurity in London. Yet, she never concealed her past or apologized for living life to the fullest. Gardner herself summarized her existence with her characteristic directness. "I was never an actress," she once maintained. "I just moved around in front of the camera and looked attractive." Nonetheless, her femme fatale image continues to enchant film enthusiasts, and her narrative, that of a girl from impoverished origins in North Carolina who became an iconic emblem of desire and defiance, appears to resonate more profoundly than a record of flawless performances. She lived in an era when female stars were expected to be demure, and she rejected that mold, even casting it aside with abandon. In doing so, she not only enthralled audiences, but also expanded the horizons for what a woman in Hollywood could aspire to be. Well, I trust you enjoyed this account. I would like to take this moment to address a question I frequently encounter in the comment section of my videos. Specifically, who am I? I've chosen this particular episode to introduce myself as my parents actually named me in honor of its subject. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, so the lore of Hollywood and the history of cinema were always readily accessible to me during my upbringing. These days, I reside in Europe, where I met my good friend Chester. Together, approximately 18 months ago, we decided to utilize our free time to begin sharing our passion for classic film stars, and subsequently, classic rock figures, on our sister channel, Rock and Roll Mysteries, which I encourage you to explore if you haven't already. It has achieved remarkable success, far exceeding our initial expectations. Perhaps one day, both of us will be able to leave our current employment and dedicate ourselves full-time to the mystery channels. If you wish to assist us in pursuing this aspiration, please feel free to visit our Patreon page to learn how you can offer your support. I'm uncertain how closely I've lived up to Ava Gardner's flamboyant reputation, but in any event, this is her namesake bidding farewell. I am Ava. It is a pleasure to meet you, and thank you for listening. Until our next encounter, sleep well.